Sorry.
Meeting will come to order. We still have 2 sets of minutes out. I have to talk to Pat and Omar, try to get them in. Mayor's out of town, but she did send us an email about 6-4. Everybody get that?
No.
She indicated she no longer supports being on a mayor being on the Board of Public Works. So we'll discuss that.
And appointment by city council, she doesn't think.
Well, if the mayor was gonna be on it, we were gonna switch that. So she doesn't agree. She wants to keep it the way it is, but go to 5 members. We'll talk about that. Anything from the students? How was We the People? Was it great?
Very good
job.
Well done. They did a really good job.
Where'd they end up anyway?
I think they got 19th or 19th, yeah.
19th out of like 55 or so?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Wow.
For a little town in Easthampton.
City.
Still a city, a town that calls itself a city. All right, so let's go to Article 6. I want to make sure, y'all see Article 6, I have hard copies. We passed that 6-1 wouldn't make any changes, 6-2 no changes. I'm just catching up to make sure my notes are correct. 6-3 we added the words or a combination thereof, correct? Everybody okay with that? And we passed that. We did not pass 6-4. Omar objected, we did not have enough votes, but we decided we'll talk about it again.
One small point, thereof is one word.
I have thereof as one word here.
And it looks like 2 here.
6-3.
I have thereof on my computer as one word, but maybe it didn't come out.
Oh, mine is different, look.
Weird.
Yeah, mine is 2 words.
That's strange.
Must be autocorrect.
I don't know.
Yeah, I've got the same thing.
That's weird.
Anyway.
Anyway, well, I'm glad it's one word.
The official copy of Barbara will make sure everything looks great. So,
Thank you very much.
I want to go back to 6-4. This is something we have to finish discussing. We did agree with the establishment and scope as amended, correct? Everybody read that over? We eliminated a lot of the language that talks about disposal of garbage and refuse because we don't do that. Maintenance and repair of city buildings, we're trying to add that, but do we need it in here?
I don't.
It's in the ordinance. We're adding an ordinance to that we can do to add maintenance of city buildings or whatever is it? Is that it, maintenance?
Building maintenance, yeah.
Building maintenance, which was never before on their docket, and we changed it so that the DPW would be responsible for that. But I don't think it needs to be in the charter. The charter here had specific language about everything it did in the past.
See, my feeling is, because there's a bunch of things you can add, and like, next thing, let's think a new mayor doesn't want them to be in charge of building maintenance. Like, some people argued that because the school department has a building maintenance department, why have 2? So another mayor may prefer that it's moved, and I think it's easier to change those by ordinance or administrative code
That's true.
than by charter, so I would say take that out.
Yeah, and the tree warden stuff and everything, that's
Right.
part of an ordinance can define that.
Well, in that case, is the second sentence of your change even necessary?
Oh, you mean, what's that? In addition to building operations, maintenance, repair of city buildings. I left that in because that was there before.
There shall be a Department of Public Works responsible for the performance of all public related activities of the city. The Department of Public Works shall assume all duties and responsibilities related to public works activities. Sounds very redundant. So if you're striking the rest of that, it sounds like.
Well, we could. You're right.
Just
This actually was Melissa Zawatsky's redo, and the only thing I added was or by ordinance in accordance with section 6-1A, because we decided not to strike that, which
Right.
relates to what Joe just said. So we could strike that.
I'll make a motion to strike the second sentence.
Second.
Okay, we don't need a motion, we'll just do it, and then we'll approve the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
So I am striking, if we have consensus, the Department of Public Works shall assume all duties. Well, what about responsibility related to public works activities, period? Should I just have a period there?
Right, yeah, you don't need up the city.
And just get rid of the rest of it? Yes? What do you think, Sarah?
Sure.
I'm okay with that.
So the Department of Public Works shall assume all duties and responsibilities related to public works activities, period. additional powers, duties, and responsibilities, et cetera, or by and we added or by ordinance. So that's where it reads now.
One question, and I haven't read the ordinance that applies to Public Works. Does it basically say everything that the Public Works does, or does it add to what is presumed that the Public Works does? And the reason I'm asking is that we could just say shall be responsible for the performance of all Public Works related activities as defined in the ordinance.
Well, we don't have to, I think it's unnecessary.
I guess I'm wondering, does the ordinance define that? Because the language right now just says the ordinance adds to something.
I don't know if
Versus
an
the
ordinance
ordinance
defines it or an MGL defines it.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, up above, in the old language, they related to the Home Rule Charter, if you remember reading it. Adoption of the Home Rule Charter in 1986, performed under the authority of chapter, all that related to what Public Works should be doing. So maybe there is something in MGL that says
Those were
that.
special acts establishing the Board of Public Works.
Okay,
That,
so that's still is in existence, right, Barb?
in 1911 and 1952, those were special acts for Easthampton's Board of Public Works.
But they're not, we didn't overrule them.
No, the
So-
second one changed the first one.
Do we need, if we eliminate that language, does that hurt anything? Because the special act was an act of the legislature, so we can't, that's still in existence. Right? That makes sense, guys?
But it says prior to the adoption of the Home Rule Charter. So that implies that the adoption of the charter and the subsequent acceptance of it by the legislature supersedes
That's true.
the previous act.
Yeah, but we'd have to be, there's an awful lot that Public Works does. Do we want to be that specific in the charter? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't collect garbage. The tree warden is under parks now, right? Isn't it? And shade tree management, pest control. I don't think we need to be that specific.
Neither do I.
Right, I mean, I think that it's good for these things to have a little flexibility.
And the other thing is, if we find a hole, as Joe said, like
can change it by
we
ordinance.
changing the ordinance now, we can change it by ordinance ourselves, or the mayor can by administrative code. Right, Barb? So leave it less specific. So all we're gonna get rid of is an addition to building operations maintenance. That's gone. Okay?
I mean, I think Sarah's initial point was that everything other than that in that sentence is also stated in the first sentence.
Yes, I was saying that.
So if you strike everything out.
Oh, you're right, it's redundant. I didn't realize that.
That's why they were moving the second sentence.
That's what I said.
Oh, okay.
And maybe
Sorry,
that's what you
I
said.
misunderstood.
Change the first sentence to period after activities.
When you nail that down on your version, I'm having a slight concern that we might have a different version of this.
You shouldn't.
What is the first,
The one I just sent is the one you should have. If you have an older version, it's probably the
Well,
one I suggested
I
earlier.
just took this off your pile earlier.
Okay, then that's the one you should have, because the one I
Okay.
sent you today, right?
Okay,
Barb?
I thought you said something different that perhaps you just said.
Okay, what's that?
There is
So-
a difference between thereof and thereof.
Yeah,
so
that's-
it's possible there will be other differences in these
Yeah, I was-
drafts, so just bear
I
with
did
us.
raise the question.
No, I have no problem.
Yeah,
I just, it is true though.
Guess I misheard you.
What happens is I go back in and I look at what we did before. That's why I go.
It's just weird that that
over
one
it.
thing is different, and then I thought I heard something
Yeah.
different, and I didn't want us to be working from two different sheets.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a very small,
Where does something like the role of the Parks Department get defined currently? Because as an example, that's an area that in many communities is part of the DPW, so how do you,
No, I forget, they have
is that defined in the
section in
ordinance
there?
somewhere?
I
Or
don't-
it's not in the charter?
it's not in the
It's
charter.
either an administrative act.
It must be an administrative code.
Okay.
It might be in the ordinances that.
Yeah, I think it
The
predates that.
cemetery was added through administrative code.
Right.
It might have been established, what happened in the transition to this city is that any ordinances became that unless hereby changed. Bylaws became ordinances. I mean, obviously, there must be something out there, because it's not in our charter now. So I don't think you want to add it.
Right, no, I'm again wondering, if it isn't in the ordinance already, if the ordinance doesn't really describe the totality of what the DPW is responsible for, should that be somewhere? Because it was in the charter originally. And
Well-
now if we strike all those languages and just says, the Public Works does Public Works, where does that get defined?
Is it,
You don't have to.
yeah.
Well, I don't know, because you're saying you're worried if we strike the language up above that they're gonna say they don't have to do the furnishing of engineering services? For instance, that's up
No,
there?
I'm just saying that's why I asked the question about the Parks Department. Where does the role of that department get defined, and does it exist
It
with the
must be
administrative
defined
code?
in administrative code, but Barb,
No, I think it's ordinances from the 50s.
probably, but it's an ordinance or it's administrative code
Right.
that's not in the charter.
Right.
So I'm asking, if we take this out here, does it exist somewhere else in the administrative code or ordinance?
For this stuff
So
that
it
we're taking
describes-
out.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely will by the time that these changes go into effect, because we're looking at them.
Well, no, we're only looking at a couple things.
Parts of it.
Right.
We could add other things if we have to, but.
Because right now, all
But
this
that's a
says
good point, Bob.
is ordinances can add stuff to something without that something being defined.
Yeah, I mean, there's no section in the charter for most of the departments in the city.
Here's the other thing it says up above, the scope which may be included in any such ordinance. In other words, there was an ordinance written, or should have been written, for the scope of what Public Works does.
And if there is, then
It's
I think
not
we're
saying the Public Works will do this by virtue of the charter, it's saying there's an ordinance that establishes it. Does that, how you read that up above, Robert?
covered. I see the reference to the acts. Where is the reference to an ordinance?
It's the last sentence, it's a
Okay,
long
last sentence.
sentence.
Okay.
The scope, right after
Yeah.
scope?
Yes.
May be included in any such ordinance. Yeah, I'm just wondering if there is an ordinance that,
Well, Barbara, if you could find an ordinance establishing the parks, or if you could find an ordinance describing what the Public Works Department does. If not, we may have to write one. Because I think Joe's point is well taken. If we write it in here, it's permanent, versus if we write an ordinance, we can move things around, like who's gonna do school buildings?
Yeah, there's nothing under where I thought it might be for Park and Rec. Cemetery division merged with the Park Department through an administrative code
Yeah.
in 2003. That's
Well, it's not in the charter now, the Parks Department.
No, I thought it had to do with when Daly Field was made in the 1950s. That's when, that was a special act of the legislature, 1948 or
To
50,
establish.
the park. And I think that's when the commission,
We probably want to take a look also at old town meeting records and see if there's something.
Is this research that our students could help you with?
it's in her office.
Well,
On a
no,
shelf
Bart, we need you here.
No, I'm just gonna get my little index to see what it says for Park.
Barbara's our own personal Google search division.
Yeah.
almost as well.
Not quite, not, Google's not even close. All right, so let's move on while she looks at that. We don't have to finalize this if we really think we need to be more specific about the duties of the Public Works Department. But the fact, I just don't think we do.
Right, or I think as Bob is getting at, if there's a sentence that refers to where it's defined,
Right.
whether it be an MGL or be an ordinance as defined by, because I could.
Well, we could, up above, it does say that. The scope shall be, we could say the scope shall be defined through ordinance or administrative code or something like that. Or is that, do you want to put that sentence back that's up there? Except not collection of garbage and stuff. We don't
Oh,
wanna-
yeah.
We don't want to put
All
something in.
public works related activities defined by ordinance.
That last sentence could be just powers, duties, and responsibilities with respect to public works shall be as defined in the administrative code or ordinance.
Not additional, get rid of that.
Yeah.
Just
That's a
say
great
that
idea.
somewhere
I like
there's a
that.
place.
That's
that
a great
defines-
I
idea.
actually really like that.
And since that's new, I'm just gonna write capitalized powers. Okay?
So I'm sorry, what did you do?
We took the word additional out
Okay.
because we didn't have other duties established in the language. Powers, duties, and responsibilities with respect to public works related functions and activities shall be divided?
I believe so, yeah, instead
Yeah.
of may.
Not may, but shall. That's important.
Yes.
Yep.
And when we get to Article 8, I noticed that our ordinances should be reviewed, and that's may be reviewed.
I
We
think
might
that's
want
fine
to
as
do
well.
that. Look at these things.
Let's review our ordinance.
Well, especially
I
if
don't know
we
why
don't want to put
you
it.
do a ordinance review every 5 years, and it's just like, well, maybe you can do it.
Well, let me
every
tell you
5
something.
years.
I've been on the council and we've never done it because ordinance committee has a lot to do. So that's why I did change that to every 10 years and maybe a special committee can do it so that the ordinance committee is stacked with something while they have so much on their plate.
Right.
That's another subject. Anyway. All right, so we changed it from, we got rid of additional and we changed it from may to shall be provided. Which means if we find out that we don't have all of the ordinances defined, that ordinance
You gotta
is,
do it.
we may have to do another one. But only if this passes the legislature, right? Okay. Policy formation. Now, here's a big change. The mayor has decided she does not feel that she can support being on the Board of Public Works, the mayor being on the Board of Public Works. So all of that language was changed. And I added this language myself because we had a consensus and she agrees that it should be 5 members and that she should appoint them. But what I did take out was this 3-year, was trying to do them, because there was 3 members and every 3 years, it's gonna have to be 3-year terms. And if they quit, they quit. I mean, a lot of our other boards are 3-year terms. If you do 5 years, you're gonna give everybody a 5-year term? No, you don't wanna do that, right? Bob, you weren't here the last time. We had looked at four being on the board with the mayor being the 5th,
Right.
with the 4th, with 4-year terms so that we can transition them properly. I don't know how we do that. With 5 members, we just have to hope that they'll stay. And 3 years is enough, a long enough commitment in my view. What does everybody think of this?
So it would just be that the 2 are up, and then 2 are up, and then 1 is up.
Whatever, however way
That's-
you
Yeah.
appoint them. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know.
I mean, you could have 2 vacancies at once and then they make.
Well,
And people can resign. I mean, you can't help it, right?
You lay it out that way, but is it really gonna be realistic to call it that way?
Right, because
depends.
people are gonna,
Yeah.
drop off in the meantime.
We just had 2 resignations for various reasons, so.
Yes.
But 5 people, my only concern with that, I think it's absolute, I'm very much in favor of it, is it's tough to get volunteers to do this kind of work. Especially when you're in a position where you're making people pay more money for their sewer and water rates.
Yeah.
It is, it's hard.
Yeah, it's a big mess.
I wouldn't want to be on the Board of Assessors next year. Sorry, it's a different subject. All right, so how's my language fit with you guys? We're looking at 2, Barb, policy formulation?
She's looking at town meeting.
Okay. She loves the research stuff.
It's our superpower.
Well, let's look at this while she's looking at that.
I don't really see anything where the park and rec, very first park, Lawrence Road, 1908. The land donated from the Nonotuck Club, which I don't know if that's Nonotuck Park, was 1913. Commissioners were first elected in 1927. I don't-
Well,
Land and dump trucks and consolidation and pickup trucks.
so they kind of got their duties over time through what? Maybe MGL?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was an MGL on that.
If we don't have it, then Mass General laws would apply.
There are some, because there's certain park protections, chapter land, things like that. You can't touch parkland, and it's the park commissioners that have jurisdiction over that.
So when we write, if we want to write an ordinance about parks, we'd have to refer to that anyway.
There is a motion that was made in 1971 to study the feasibility of combining the park, cemetery, recreation, tree warden, and maybe some school grounds under one department. That was defeated.
That was in town meeting though.
That was town meeting. Yeah, it was defeated.
Okay.
Increase the number on the park and rec commission at that one.
Well, something established the Park and Rec Commission.
Could be something under state law.
Yeah.
Park.
Well, anyway, with regard to the,
Chapter 45 of MGL has public parks, playgrounds, and public domain.
okay, Lucas and Shane, I'm gonna give you a job. Look that up, will you? Both Park and Rec.
Chapter 45 of MGL.
Probably just talk to John Mason.
Well, just for our purposes, if you can find it and link us to it. Also link anything about Public Works that might help us.
Especially public works.
Is there anything in like particular in chapter 45?
I don't know, whatever Dave just found, but
Mass
I'm just,
general laws relating to public works.
and relating to parks.
The thing to be careful about, I know this for a fact, is that there are statutes that apply to boards of water commissioners, sewer commissioners, et cetera, but they only apply in the form of a town form of government. And they specifically reference towns, so.
I remember
a city
reading-
form of government, those statutes in entirety don't apply.
You should look at that. If they say town, because I know that a lot of MGL I've been studying, they specifically change it for cities in a section for cities if the law is referring to town.
There's
Yeah.
a lot more openness in terms of what cities can do, less restrictions than there are.
Is that because
are
cities have a more professionalized system of
Well,
oversight?
I assume just giving more authority and autonomy over a city form of government than,
City forms of government have more oversight, especially if there's a
Yeah.
council.
Like if we write an
That's
ordinance, then the ordinance goes into effect, but if a town passes an ordinance, it has to
It's a
go to the
bylaw.
Attorney General's office, and they have to, yeah, they call it bylaw. The Attorney General has to review it before it goes into effect, but we aren't given that oversight.
That's zone.
Yeah. I think that's true for all bylaws, isn't it?
I just don't.
Let's get back to the
Wow.
19, let's get back to 2019. Thank you, Barb.
In a city.
So, we're back to the policy formation of the public, where I have established it as, make sure the language is good. I wrote this quickly. I struck a Board of Public Works shall consist of the mayor shall appoint 5 persons appointed for terms of 3 years each. So they are not going to have them arranged to expire every year, because there's 5 members, and the rest of it stays. We okay with this? The Director of Public Works, the mayor did say she likes the idea of a 3-year appointment and the language about the director being evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works, governed by the procedures for all city employees as designated by the Office of Human Resources.
That's just responsible.
Well, that's exactly what we did the last time, but it's part of 6-4. So if we're going to vote in 6-4, we have to include that, and she's in favor of this, that's all I'm saying.
do
And
we, or should we have similar language in other charter-created positions? Or-
we did that when we redid the principal assessor in 2010,
Yeah.
which is where I pulled this from. So we are going to go back over this.
Yeah.
We're going to look at, because Barb wants us to look at electronic communication, she doesn't like that, but we're going to fix it. Anyway, we're going to look at everything we've done, and I think it'll be soon, before we submit it to the legislature for a special act, whatever we do. And we're going to take a look at anything like this. So if you think about that, do we want to add this kind of human resource language to the auditor, to any other position?
As I look at the middle of this page, I may suggest that probably the simplest way to cover it might be not to try to do it position by position, but under the Department of Personnel, some sort of a statement that the Department personnel shall have the authority to, adopt procedures and policies that apply to all city departments, including all departments.
Except the Board of Public Works is a separate entity
Right.
where you have to have specificity.
But you could add a word including all departments that are described by ordinance, by charter, by,
I would do both, Pat,
Yeah,
frankly,
okay.
because that way, nobody is going to think, hey, I'm away.
right.
This is specific to this department because of the Board of Public Works.
And maybe next time around it's not needed, because at that point, people have gotten familiar, or comfortable with the fact that the Director of Public Works
Well, like,
operates within the organization the same as any other department.
we don't really have to do it for the finance director, because she's appointed through the mayor, and because human resources sake, I'm just using it as an
Yeah.
example. But the auditor is appointed to us,
Right.
principal assessor.
And those have 3
Barbara,
years.
Barbara, you don't have language that says,
I'm not,
do we need
there's
that?
no evaluation process in the city right now, and I think.
Well, there is, in these
I
situations,
think that it's, I don't know, just, I would rather keep the human resources in that section 6-5 than other sections.
well, we added this the last time because we liked it, because of the Board of Public Works being involved with it. It's not simply human resources overseeing the Director of Public Works. It's the Board of Public Works in conjunction with human resources.
So why does the human resources have to be involved with something that's appointed by a board or city council?
Because we don't want two separate personnel policies being developed by the Board of Public Works, and then that might be different.
Different holidays,
there's-
different vacation
Oh, well, yeah,
policies, all those types of
general
things.
policies apply to everything.
Well, they don't, right now, unless you specify it for the Board of Public Works. It may be that he,
He's a pay plan person, so it falls under the pay plan regulations.
technically, I don't know. I'm just going by,
I would just stop it right after city employees.
I don't agree.
Shall be governed by rules and procedures for all city employees. Period.
Well, this is language that we liked the last time and the mayor liked it, and I still like it. We can think about that. I just feel like there was concern that we needed specificity for this position and maybe other positions.
Yeah.
That was brought up by Stan and other people regarding that we want to be clear.
Just don't want to take the authority of the appointing,
Doesn't.
just.
I don't think it does. It only says that the Board of Public Works with human resources. What we don't want is a future Board of Public Works coming up with their own vacation time, hours management time, etc. That if they want to do that, they have to consult with the human resources.
But if
I
you
think-
stopped it after city
But
employees.
see,
that would
I
still
think
be the
Barbara's
same
point though, is when you write in conjunction with the board, you're giving the Board of Public Works employees a opening to have different policies than other employees. If you just stop it, like you said, for all city employees, and maybe just some clarifying language,
As designated, well, all city employees are, those policies are governed, the rules and procedures for all city employees, they're governed by human resources, aren't they?
all right, but when you say human resources in conjunction with the board, that's a negotiation.
Right, the board could both have no vacation time for the director, technically.
I mean, it could be a negotiation. It
The
doesn't have to
director is a
be.
paid plan
Wait.
employee, so they have.
Where does
to
that-
be
it-
under-
So just one second.
Conjunction, it doesn't mean negotiation.
We're talking about,
Well, in combination, so yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Go ahead.
yeah, and shall be governed by the rules and procedures. I mean, are we even talking about stuff like vacation time there? Because isn't that like, I thought that's more like code of conduct,
We don't harass people
that sort of stuff.
and show up.
Yeah.
Well,
because-
rules and procedures? Well, vacation rules.
Well, yeah, but
That's set by.
isn't your vacation part something like negotiated in your contract?
Well, the pay plan, we have vacation, you know, like you work so many years, you get this many, and you know, it's
So
all
the pay
set.
plan is what designates how many
Right,
vacation days you get
right,
per position.
right. And the director is a pay plan.
Okay.
Right, so the Board of Public Works isn't setting his salary, they aren't setting his vacation time
Sick leave
there.
or any of that.
But what they could be doing is setting policies about how they're supposed to handle certain things, policies about, you know, just general conduct and whatnot. And given the fact that this is a body that is supposed to oversee this, you know, this department that has a great deal of political independence, far more
Right,
than
yeah.
any other thing, it certainly seems like the board should have the power there. But I also feel like as the board is developing that, they may wish to consult with the personnel department because it's somewhat unlikely that any of them will be personnel experts.
I agree.
I mean, I'm fine with fine tuning the language, but I think in principle what we have here is actually a pretty good idea.
In conjunction, does that suggest negotiation? Joe, you think it does?
Well, I mean, in other words, you could say in combination, and so it sounds to me
Or
like
make
you're
it-
having two people combining their thoughts, that is a type of negotiation, or there's at least a discussion about it. It does mean it's just not made by one group, it's by human resources and the board.
I think the idea was to
By
have,
human resources, period. And then in another sentence, could we describe what the board does? The board may set policy for conduct, or something like that. Like,
Well, I don't think they should do that.
no.
But it's weird, because
It's a long sentence, and long sentences get kind of unwieldy.
But what is the board's role? I mean, like, the board's role would never be to craft to use your example, like a sexual harassment policy.
Right.
That's personnel's job, and the board should just be taking personnel word that this is or human
I
resources.
think what the board, what was, the point of this was to make sure that the department and the director follow the same rules as everybody else, and that just because he's under the Board of Public Works doesn't mean the human resource rules, procedures, whatever they are, don't have to be followed.
I think
And that has to
this-
do with time management and things like that, and we wanted to make sure the Board of Public Works had that authority.
What about just, shall be governed by the same rules, add the word same, rules and procedures?
For all city employees, that,
For the question, I guess I'd be saying, in some cases, might there be more flexibility? Bluntly, in the wintertime, when staff are plowing roads nonstop.
That's true.
The DPW director might be working 80 hours a week.
well, that's why there needs to be.
Does the board have the flexibility to say, we're gonna catch up on that in the summertime or in the springtime when things, because some of, policies can be very restrictive sometimes if
But
you try to enforce
yes,
them.
and that's why the Board of Public Works, in conjunction with Human Resources, in other words, we're gonna set this policy, we want you to know it, Human Resources, so that if somebody complains about it, it's because of this and that. But this is giving the Board of Public Works authority to do that, doesn't it?
Yes.
It doesn't exist now,
The
over
in
this
conjunction, I'm
position.
not quite certain how that all works.
Well, okay, then we have to write something else. I agree
I
with
think-
Tom. I think the idea of Human Resources being there makes it clear that this particular position doesn't have separate rules.
I think you're trying to do two things in one sentence, because,
We could change the sentence, sure.
well, that's what I'm saying. Right, the director shall be subject to the terms of the Board of Public Works appointment. And if
Period.
That's really a wordy,
Yeah.
Board of Public Works.
As-
Way too many.
the Board of Public Works,
Well, I was gonna do BPW, but, just to make it easier, but then what is BPW in the charter?
the director, no, that's not,
See, we got a little bit carried away, because at the beginning of the sentence, we're only talking about the director of
yeah.
Public Works. We started talking about our employees as we were discussing.
I don't think it's actually, it's
No.
not talking about all other employees, it's talking
Right.
about the
That's what I'm getting
director.
at, that's what I'm getting at.
This is, we got off track there. This sentence as written only addresses the director.
Right.
Exactly, and that's what,
And the paragraph addresses the director.
do we change it after? I don't know.
I have a thought. I think it's possible we could cut the last two lines of this sentence. So
Really?
it just says,
I thought you wanted to be a reason.
no, I mean, I do, but maybe that should be a different sentence then. But I think that we can say, the Director of Public Works shall be subject to the terms of the Board of Public Works appointment, and instead of evaluation, say an evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works. That's a
Period.
sentence. If we want to put a second sentence after that, that's fine, but I think that's a starting point, is to
I
say,
like it.
Well-
that is a sentence to say that they are going to be overseen and evaluated by the Board of Public Works.
Okay.
Why, I guess even, why do we even have to say they shall be subject to the terms of the Board of Public Works appointment or the Board of Public Works? Above, we say, is the appointing authority.
Yeah.
That sentence doesn't make sense.
So should it just be the Director of Public Works shall be evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works?
We wanted language about evaluation, and that evaluation might be simply, like everybody else, reappointment.
Director of Public Works shall be subject to evaluation by the Board of Public Works.
Period. Or do we conclude,
I think that's fine.
go
to put-
back to what the mayor said. I think the mayor wanted something connection to human resources and the rules and procedures. I don't know, I like
yeah,
that
but
too.
still, go with Tom's suggestion. Put a period.
Wait a minute, say it again, Tom. The Director of Public Works shall be subject,
Okay, I like what Barb said actually. This is the Director of Public Works shall be evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works.
Oh no, hold on a second. Director of Public Works shall be evaluated and governed by the rules and procedures for all employees as designated by the Office of Human Resources in conjunction with the board.
It sounds like the evaluation is by the HR.
These seem like two different, there's two different processes.
evaluation by Public Works is one.
Mhm.
Following the rules and procedures of human resources is another.
Yes.
As for all city
So
employees.
shall be evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works.
Period.
The Director of Public Works shall be governed by all rules and procedures.
I like to keep the sentence as is, but maybe not in, well, because there has to be, the board has to agree with this. I don't know.
I mean, I guess
How
what
about
I'm
saying
seeing is,
as dictated by the Office of Human Resources, subject to the approval of the board? So you.
There you go.
if
That's not bad.
Human Resources says this is the way to do it, the board has the right to say no.
The
we
board
don't
is,
agree with
board
it,
is the
but it-
final arbiter of all these things. That keeps it independent and less confusing. And it allows for flexibility to change things depending on the new person coming
But
in.
the regular policy of the city is the starting point.
All right, so
the board
somebody
can say
help me,
no.
I want to write this right. I'm going to write it all over. So what is the first sentence, Tom?
the Director of Public Works shall be. Well,
Evaluated?
Well, do you think that the whole subject to the terms of the appointment is, I mean, that seems
I think
like,
It's-
Bob was right on
There's
that.
really three things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That-
So what am
we
I
don't need to
writing?
say-
If you're appointed, then you're subject to the one.
right, I mean, that seems like,
Well,
you
the
don't,
first
you don't even need to
First
say
sentence
that.
already has that.
Oh, then, yeah. So,
You guys have got me all confused.
the Director of Public Works shall be evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works.
So that's the first sentence?
Yes.
Now, hold on, don't, let me type it. Shall be evaluated as dictated.
As dictated.
Wait a minute, let me finish this one and then we'll change it again. As dictated by shall be evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works, correct?
Yeah, I guess actually we can just cut out the as dictated.
Yeah, I think that's.
Shall be evaluated by the Board of Public Works.
Yeah.
Okay, am I cutting that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that, that's good. As
And actually
evaluated
puts the
by the
board
Board
as
of
well.
Public Works. And what's the next sentence? I still wanna keep, personally, I wanna keep.
Well, you could say-
It could work as it is, and just to comma, and shall be governed by the rules and procedures for all city employees as designated by the Office of Human
We keep it
Resources,
like that.
subject to approval of the board.
Or you could just say the Board of Public Works will follow the rules and procedures for all city employees.
What did you just say, Bob?
I think keeping the sentence as we're broken it into pieces now, so
And shall be governed by the rules and procedures for all city employees,
as designated by the Office of Human Resources, comma,
subject to approval.
of the
So
board.
that's the change.
So we still want the influence, but we do want the board to be able to say, no, we want to treat the director differently because of this reason.
Can you think of an example?
Like I said, wintertime conditions, you know, the
Overtime.
DPW director's going nonstop,
Like flex time more than
Right.
10 hours.
because it gets tough, it's, you know, to be put in, I'm looking at it myself here as things.
You can't build up more than 10 hours of flex time. Even in the
I
winter.
think you're gonna have to have
Yeah.
Jane and Nicole.
That's what I was thinking about, it'd probably be good to have James.
Right.
What?
And, you know, the
I
DPW
mean,
staff
we're
are
talking
getting
about
paid for that
overusing
time,
flex
so
time
there's
and
some
things like that. I
fair
think
way to
we should have
cover that,
James in.
whereas with the guy running the
Exceeding normal
show,
flex time, I think we
there's
should
no
have
way to
James.
build in any.
After we write it, I think you should run it by Jane, that's what I said. She's
All
probably
right.
gonna
I will do that.
Dan?
Hold on, let me finish what I'm writing here.
What would stop a board from going rogue and doing some crazy things, though?
Like what?
I don't know.
Well,
The board
car-
decides that sexual harassment is.
Well, no, a car
Plowing in
car policy
June.
used to be a lightning rod years ago.
They don't get reappointed by the
You know,
mayor.
and stuff like that, you know. So the board could conceivably say, yes, you have free use of a car outside of 25 miles. You know, it's a silly example, but that's the kind of stuff that might be going rogue possibly.
Well, it's still an issue.
Okay.
So I have-
Is valid, though.
Like, for instance, I mean, there isn't this, there is an issue with the director using a city car that supposedly he's not supposed to. So that's problematic. So if the board says it's okay, does that oversee the human HR policies of the city?
It says, yes, because what we just wrote, subject to the approval of the board.
Okay. As long as
I like
The
that.
board
I
has a
like
whole
what
lot
Bob
more
said,
authority
because
to set
that,
water and sewer rate. That's the biggest impact it can have
Yeah.
on the community,
Yeah.
and the board has sole autonomy in that.
I mean, the
Don't trust them
autonomy
to
of the
set,
Board of Public
you know,
Works is what we want to
Vehicle
maintain.
policies.
Right, Bob? We want to maintain the independence and autonomy.
I think so.
And your language really works well. Subject to the approval of the board makes that they still have autonomy over, well, we're going to give him different kinds of flex time. Or different rules on how he uses a car, I guess. So what I have now, just to review it, the Director of Public Works shall be evaluated by the Board of Public Works and shall be governed by the rules and procedures for all city employees as designated by the Office of Human Resources, subject to the approval of the board. Good?
I think it accomplishes really three things. This whole paragraph is, it's not an appointment for life.
Mm-hmm.
The person has to be held accountable through reviews, and they have to follow policies.
Yeah, I would be
And the
surprised. if this-
evaluation doesn't have to be this formal evaluation. The evaluation is reappointment.
Well, that's our intent, that's our spirit, but I'm just not sure Jane's gonna go along with it.
Or Nicole,
Yeah, that's all.
No, she liked it. Nicole did.
No, but to me, it sounds, and I understand the point, but there is a bit of wiggle room here for the board allowing the DPW head to follow different rules, personnel rules than the other city employees do. If we're talking about something, I think, legitimate, like you've worked 80 hours this week, but I mean, Barb, how many hours do you put in during elections? I mean, you could argue for anybody. There are those times. So it will be.
And I guess what they were trying to do, Joe and Lonette, is to try and make things more fair for everybody, that one person can't just do that.
Right, and it sounds like that board is gonna have the ability to have more flexibility than other departments about being lenient to what they wanna change HR rules to, which it may be, that's,
But the Board of Public Works isn't an independent agency. It's independent for that reason. If they have to make certain things,
yeah, but I can see it independent for setting rates and stuff like that, but are they gonna be so independent? Like, I mean, again, you have the argument about putting in so many times during the winter, but I make the argument about Barb putting in 80 hours during elections.
I have a concern, actually, as I'm thinking about it, evaluated as dictated by the Board of Public Works. Well, what if the Board of Public Works says, don't worry about it?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
their
then you need a
prerogative.
Board of Public Works.
And also, the big thing here is the 3-year term. If you're appointed for life, it's like a Supreme Court justice. They don't care if people don't like them.
On the flip side of that, though, are we going to have a weaker pool of candidates since they're only guaranteed a 3-year job?
Bob, how many DPW directors have life terms?
I'm not.
You know of any? I'm just saying.
Not many of them, and the reality is, there's a scarcity of good people out there to start with. So, a community would be foolish not to reappoint a good director that they have.
But if he just does things that he shouldn't be doing, how do you get rid of him unless it's a felony?
It seems to me that indefinite term doesn't mean lifetime, because they're subject and they answer to the supervision of the board, and they're responsible to the board. So the board can fire them at any time, now, it seems to me.
It's
It's not without, well, I think the cause has to be almost criminal.
You know,
Why?
Because I just don't see, well, I guess, maybe you're right. I just don't think that,
It's not clear to me that the original charter language included any provision on how a board might remove a director if they so needed to.
It's all interpreted, I would have interpreted it, indefinite means the board can determine what that term is at any point in time.
That's what I'm saying, because.
On one
you-
end of the
you know,
spectrum,
you're
but it
actually-
hasn't worked that way.
You
Yeah.
run a risk of, by codifying it with a 3-year appointment, you gotta deal with a sucky director for 2 years if after year 1 they fail.
But what about a sucky town clerk? You know, town clerk has a 3-year term. There are lots, it's pretty consistent across the
well,
board.
that was the other thing that I
major
looked at.
positions
We
in the
have
community.
3-year terms for a lot of major positions. Finance director being one, and others. I mean, these are,
Indefinite is certainly more open-ended than 3-year.
Yeah, although, as I'm reading it again, it says 3-year appointment or until a successor is chosen.
Well, I
So
always,
after 6 months, the board can choose a successor to replace them.
Yeah, I mean, if something dire enough happened, I think
Right.
there's always the ability,
So there's a safety there.
you know.
Communities.
but I like the notion of a 3-year term. Indefinite term has a lot of interpretations. 3-year term, okay, you got 3-year term.
The lifetime appointment or perception of lifetime appointment isn't very typical. Typically your employer will, in some communities, you could be hired and fired at any point. In other communities, I was a 3-year contract DPW director in East Long Meadow as an example. Didn't bother me in any way.
Well, you do your job, like
Right.
Barb's done her job for what, 50 years? How long you been? She gets reappointed.
but I always,
I mean, you do your job, you get reappointed. If you really screw up, if you have a 3-year appointment, to me, it means you've got to be a little more careful. Now, this is, by the way, this isn't going to relate to Joe Pitt, but this is relating to the new,
Yeah.
whoever that is. Because I don't think we can grandfather this in, can we?
I think so.
I'm wondering,
It's
can
our
we?
charter, I mean.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know. What do you guys think? I was wondering about that.
well, back up a minute, I would, I don't have a problem with a 3-year term, but I was always wondering why we use a school committee example where the superintendent has a contract administered by the school committee.
Well, that's,
The BPW could do the same thing.
Well, they're
Yeah.
elected.
And in theory,
Oh,
that
okay, well,
it
then-
says terms, so the implication is there's some agreement that is established between the director and the board.
and that
It's a
also
written
might be
contract.
dictated by Mass General
Yeah, it's
law
okay.
and schools.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's pretty tightly controlled how you handle a superintendent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that being an also appealing model. I think the terms are good because it's sort of, like, it means that there has to be a check-in every 3 years, when.
Why not? Yeah.
Where people, people come up and they go up for reappointment, and it forces, like, people who are council appointments, it forces us as the council to sort of be like, how's that person doing? you know, and to, you know, to spend some, just to have a little conversation
Right.
about that.
You know, the good thing, it's not a political appointment, so it's not you know, you elect a new mayor and that new mayor thinks, you know, I'm gonna put my buddy in that position. That can't happen in this, and it is even less, well, because a term limit prevents that from happening, one. And then two, the Board of Public Works will tend to be less political than an elected official, so it creates more
They have, we
stability.
went over that, they have to be, because sewer and water rates have to be dealt with differently than taxes.
Especially with a five-member, 3-year rotation.
Yeah.
That'll outlive.
You might span
a lot of
multiple mayors, yeah.
Let me do this, let me send this to Jane and to the mayor, and hopefully they come to the next meeting and we can discuss it further. Is that okay with everybody?
And I have one question though, I know you mentioned evaluated, do we need to say a time, like are they evaluated yearly, are they evaluated at every 3 years? When are they evaluated, does that need to be specified?
I think the Board of Public Works can make that decision. And they can go to Human Resources and say, how does, like, I don't think,
Well, there are no.
you're not evaluated, right? So.
You have to do it, because you're my.
But we don't
Right,
have-
but we just reappoint you. If there was a question of a reappointment, and we've had that for, you know who we're talking
Yeah.
about. I mean, that comes up. So, at the time of the reappointment,
Right, because your reappointment gets sent to appointments and then discussed, so there is the.
if someone had, if someone came in and said that Barbara the Bombard treated me terribly during my question at the Board of Public, I'd like to see that person.
When's the next reappointment? No.
Chris is after your job, Barbara.
Good luck.
You don't want that job. It's way too hard. There's nobody in this room that can do
Well,
it
look at
except
the cool books you get to deal with.
That's true.
Yeah, Barb, can you put those out digital so when we Google, you know, Parks and Rec in City of Easthampton, we can just get it right up?
It will be there someday.
She's trying.
So this
I
is,
want to move forward then.
just one more question.
Okay.
So now that we've defined a period of time for the department, the head of the department, it's a 3-year appointment, do we need, or what is the procedure, just like Barb has this procedure that she reapplies to city council, then with his appointment, is it's gonna be then he'll reapply to the Board of Public Works?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's.
They're the appointing authority.
Right, so there's-
Barb applies to us.
Hmm?
Be posted.
Posted, right?
Does it have to be posted if you're reappointed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Does-
Anybody ever try to apply to get your job?
So far, but.
I'm just
I'm
curious.
gonna be posting for, Val's, because her appointment's coming up in like
I
September.
didn't know that. I just thought it
No,
was.
we're posting.
Yeah.
It's a little scary to see them up there.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that, I think somewhere we've stated that the merit principle is up here about, if we're gonna hire somebody for a DPW director, they better have the qualifications necessary, not, you know, hire a friend.
And if you're gonna appoint a Board of Public Works member, you better appoint somebody who respects personnel policies and
Like the former director of Public Works at East Longmeadow, or?
at some point.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna run that by, we don't vote on this tonight, let's see what happens with the mayor, looks at it. We already voted on Human Resources, I changed that, Barbara caught that, Department of Human Resources, 6-5. We voted on all of this, we all liked it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to Article 8. This is our last action article. I had nothing in the first 3. Does anybody? I added your language there, Sarah, for 8-4. You asked for.
Yes.
So the 8-4 change is requested by Sarah? We need one number in gender. Why do we need that?
Because it's grammar.
Okay.
I actually did a quick search. I didn't see any, I mean, it was super quick. I didn't see any personal pronouns with either gender, but I feel like it's important if we are going to, because this is attempting to be inclusive with feminine gender. that if you're gonna be attempt to be inclusive, you better do a good job and just say any gender, all genders.
Help me in definition of importing. Importing is derivation of importance or giving value to?
In this case, I'm guessing it means referring to.
Well,
Couldn't you say like referencing, words referencing, or?
well,
That
they
was
used
just-
importing
Yeah, that was the
in a
original.
language
Okay.
before.
Yeah.
And again, this is boilerplate charter from
Good point.
the state gives you, and I don't know why that word, like down below, I hated this word conveyance, or I'll get back to that.
But didn't you say, wouldn't you say one of the things you want to do that people could pick this up and read it more easily?
You're right.
So maybe we
Okay.
should make it more easily versus,
Referring to any gender shall
Yeah.
include all genders.
I don't mind the word referring. And words
Referring to?
referring any gender, referring to any gender? Is that what,
Referencing,
Referencing?
pertaining,
Referencing I like better.
okay,
referencing?
Yeah.
but still
Should
two.
words have any in front of it? Doesn't have to.
It's-
Singular, and words referencing to any gender?
Right, I guess.
What I have now is and words referencing to any gender shall include all genders.
You shouldn't have a semicolon and an and. The semicolon.
Where do I
takes
have the
place.
semicolon? Oh, after singular?
Yeah, but that is a, I didn't notice that was a semicolon.
So could it be a comma?
Not if you wanna run on, if you wanna run on
Lucas has
sentences.
a question.
Yes, Lucas, sorry.
It just says importing again at the beginning of the sentence too. If you want to change that to reference, or whatever you're changing the second importing to.
Yeah.
I would agree. That's a good catch.
Don't you do semicolons for strings of long? You know, in a simple string, you use a comma, but if you get to a very long string of this, and this, I think convention would be to use a semicolon.
I like the word
Divide them.
reference.
Yeah, there's two importing, three importing.
So words referencing the singular number may extend and be applied to several persons or things. Words referencing the plural
Yeah, but-
number, okay.
But see, I think that's, it's intending three independent clauses because of the way this first one does.
That's gotta be something legal.
Yeah, I don't even know what this is.
It is,
Maybe we
I
just leave
found
it.
a sample clause that's pretty close to it.
What does it say?
I
In our
already
charter?
moved on from that, but it is legalese.
Oh.
I'm just trying to figure out why.
Well, again, I like Joe's point. We're trying to make this easy for,
I think importing does mean
For
referencing.
2019 readers.
well, I think referencing is a lot easier to understand.
So there's one thing.
So after singular, do I put a comma or a colon?
No,
I have a new sample if you're
Semicolon.
interested.
words referencing any gender shall include all genders.
May include the singular and words. We're adding your language then?
Yes. No, actually,
What if
let's not do
instead of
and.
referencing, we said using?
No, I have a bunch of legal.
Like words
clauses.
using the singular.
Well, okay, so technically.
Wait, time out. Go ahead, Chris.
All references to any party will be read with such changes in number and gender as the context or reference requires.
Actually,
Whose is that?
Lawinsider.com.
Import, so I have a definition of import here. It is noted as an archaic definition to express.
There you go.
To express or make known.
Okay.
I think referencing really works for me.
Yeah,
It's
that's fine.
got a,
not,
it's stronger in my mind than.
I'm just trying to figure out what
what
do
if
you
we
do
said
after
expressing?
semicolon though?
So I think reference is actually the best word.
Okay.
For grammar reasons, because pronouns technically reference a noun earlier or elsewhere in the sentence,
Okay,
right?
cool, let's do it.
Or
All right, so
stand in for a
words, let me read this. Referencing the singular number may extend and be applied to several persons or things, semicolon.
Mm-hmm.
Words referencing the plural number may include the singular
semicolon.
and words, and that
But
should
no
have a
and.
semicolon?
Semicolon, but no and.
Okay, semicolon.
Then that means that there are three independent clauses, each with,
So your and is gone?
yeah, that and can be gone.
Okay, singular, Words referencing to any gender shall include all genders.
You don't need to, just words referencing any gender
You're right.
shall include all
Okay,
genders.
I used,
It's all right.
somebody said two.
I did it one time, but I didn't read the sentence.
At least it wasn't my fault, Joe. All right, so that's done for now.
Thank you.
I think, let's go through the whole thing and then vote on it if we want to. All right, next subject, 8.5, rules and regulations. I had nothing to change in that myself. Anybody? Okay, charter review.
I was gonna ask,
What are we talking about, Dave?
charter review, it says at least once in every 10 years, and every year in zero, the city council shall provide for review. I was gonna ask if people thought that at the years that end in 5, we could have a charter, the city council may provide for a review of the city charter. And the reason why I was thinking that is, something like changing the voting age to 16, I think needs to have a full-blown charter review. Probably, do you want to wait 10 years for that?
Do you
Well, let
have
me
to-
say this, you could have a charter change anytime, you can have a select committee.
Okay,
This is saying you have to do it every 10 years.
right, okay.
But you don't have to wait, we didn't.
Right.
We waited 9 years.
Yeah, at least
That's
one.
fine, and I don't mean to cloud it up, I just thought.
No, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
if that came up and counselors
I
like they
think
did
though,
this
to
time.
make that clear, at least once in every 10 years and in every year ending in a 0. I think that would make it clear that you must do it in the 0 years.
Well, we say at least, so that's what gave us the reason
It
to
sounds
do
like
this
doing it
committee.
Twice versus.
You can just say in every end, you can just start it in every year ending in 0.
Yeah.
And that will
But I
force
like the
it.
word at least because that is exactly why this committee was formed, because the word at least suggests we could do it anytime.
Yeah, I
We
guess.
don't have to wait 10 years to
I
do
see.
it.
I guess if we wanted to be as explicit about that as possible, we could say, in every year ending with 0, the city council shall blah, 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 and then say, the city council may convene a charter review committee at any other time that it feels
But I think we
necessary.
don't need 2 sentences to say.
Right, I
what
mean,
the
I think it
sentence
makes
says.
sense, but it actually was the source of a tiny bit of confusion when we proposed this.
Yeah.
I think and clears that up, I'm just saying.
But we could strike in every 10 years and just say at least once in every year ending in a 0. Because the
No.
10 years and 0 are redundant.
That
No,
is-
that means you have to do it at least once in a year ending in a 0.
At least once in every year.
Right, it would have to say, at least in
Yeah.
every year ending of 0.
Well, we want to add that language that Tom just said. That'd be fine with me because it makes it clear. You're right. There was some, when I heard you guys want to do this, I thought it had to be, but we interpreted at least saying, no, we can do this. But why do we need to leave it to interpretation of a future council? Just say a council may have a charter review committee at any time, or whatever, that kind of language, right?
So could it say, at least in every year ending in a 0, and whenever else the city council,
But why not
Deems it
just put
appropriate.
and? At least once in every 10 years and in every year ending in a 0.
Can I interject and just take it a step back? So you guys have the choice to do this. Do you want it done every year in a 0? Or do you want it done every 10 years? Meaning, if the change happened now, you wouldn't have to do it. You wouldn't have to do it until 2029. So you guys
I
should
would
decide
rather it
that
be
first.
every year in 0 at least. So, in other words, because it says shall, does it say that next year we have to decide to have a charter review committee and
Right.
maybe not do it?
I mean, that committee could meet once, say,
Right.
yep, it looks good, and
Right.
then disband, but it does need to, there needs to be the process of sitting down and,
We don't want it to go
Yeah.
forever without having shame.
What if you simply say in every year ending in a 0 and whatever else necessary? Because every year ending in 0 implies like 10 years.
yeah, no, I see what you're saying there.
But, well, first of all, we could do that.
I like that.
I don't know, because Necessary is subject to the interpretation of the council.
So it'd be
You could say in every
whenever-
year
Well,
ending
isn't it
zero,
already?
Or at the will. You could say,
Or at the will of the council. Yeah.
Okay.
That's, I like
And
that.
every year ending in a 0, or
At least once every 10 years, or every year ending in 0, or at the will of the city council.
Yeah, you could really,
no, get rid of
I
the
like
first
that.
one.
You
Get
could
rid of
really
the first
say,
clause.
at least in every year ending with the 0.
I don't
I
see
think
why we
it's
have
at
to
least.
take out at once every 10 years. I like the fact that we're thinking every 10 years. And the
Right, but
reason
if-
we say every year ending in 0 is because when this charter started, it was in 96. So did we do a review in 2000? I don't think we
No,
did.
no.
Barb, did we?
No. Our review was the first review.
2010.
Right.
So we waited for 14 years.
Right.
At least once in every 10 years, somebody should have caught that. I mean,
They could
obviously.
have done, they could have opened it, oh, you
I
were
was here, we didn't.
Okay.
No one caught it because the language is ambiguous.
At least once in every 10
agree
years
with
is
it.
ambiguous?
I don't.
Or every year ending in 0 isn't ambiguous. It should have been done in 2000, legally, right? That's a year
But
ending
10
in 0.
years hadn't passed.
Huh?
But 10 years hadn't passed. I agree with you.
I see
the
what you're
record,
saying,
but-
though, in every year ending in 0.
The only reason I care about this at all is because we were involved in some email discussions where not everyone agreed
Yeah.
that that's what that meant. So it does seem like making it
I
absolutely
like the
crystal
at the will of the council, whatever that
Oh,
language was, the
okay.
chain and, so at least once every year, 10 years, and every year ending in 0, or at the will of
the council.
the council. And then we have to say the city council shall, that's repeating it
But I
again.
think it should be and, not or.
Yeah, I would
Right.
Why not or?
Because if you say
Or
or.
if the council doesn't will it in a year ending in 0.
Right, you could say, right.
And at the will of the council.
Yeah.
And additionally, at the will of the council?
That's fine.
No, I think or is better because that suggests you could do it after 5
But
years.
if you put and, couldn't they say like, couldn't the council say they don't want to, and then therefore they don't have to?
That's what I'm saying.
So or says, if you have or there, you don't have to do it in the 0 year.
Okay, how
No,
about...
or at the will of the council.
How about we turn this sentence around?
Okay.
The city council shall provide for a review of the charter every 10 years, or as they, or additionally as they.
Or as deemed necessary. Or is that too big?
You don't care about ending in 0? Because we have to start someplace.
Two sentences, because
Yeah.
you're running into the situation where the council might say, we don't deem it necessary and it doesn't matter that it's been 10 years.
So this is a slightly longer-winded way, but it's very clear. If we said, at least in every year ending in 0,
Mhm.
and then we say this, and then say at the end, the city council may also convene a charter review whenever, in any other year that it feels is necessary.
Which is what we did.
Right.
But, I mean, you said it's longer, but it's clearer.
All right. I hope you have that memorized. Do we not say, you don't want to do 0?
No, I think we could, what I'm saying is if we say at least in every year ending in 0, then that does mean, I mean, every 10 years, a year comes up that's ending in 0.
At least once in every 10 years and every year ending in 0 is staying.
What I'm saying is that we can simplify that to just say at least in every year ending in 0.
Oh, get rid of the 10 years.
Because that, every 10 years, there is a year that ends in 0.
You could just say every year that ends in a 0, a charter committee shall be convened by the city council.
This,
That's what it
Period.
says.
not passive though. The city council shall
Correct.
provide for,
For a review of the charter by a special standing
In
committee.
every year ending in 0, period.
So we don't do the 10 years.
Right.
At least, do we say at least, Tom?
Yeah, we say at least in every year ending in 0.
At least in every year ending in 0, the city council shall provide for review of the charter by a special or standing committee of the city council.
I think you should period here.
Yes,
Where?
right there.
City council. Then Tom's sentence about the additional.
Well, then strike the
Wait,
word
wait,
at
wait,
least.
whoa, you got me.
Okay, so, here, I think I get what Sarah's saying. So it starts with a sentence. At least in every year ending in 0, the city council shall provide for a review of the charter by a special or standing committee of the city council, period.
Period. Okay.
The city council may also
But I was-
provide for such a review in any other year as they see fit.
The only purpose of putting those words "at least" is to try to say two things in the same sentence. If you're making them two separate
Wait,
sentences, sentence one just says, "Thou shalt do this." Sentence two says, "Thou may also do this."
So, Tom, can I say, the city council may also,
Provide for such a review in any year that it feels,
as,
or in
That
any
it
other,
deems
in any
necessary.
other year.
Deem necessary.
Yeah,
Or desires.
right,
Just wants it.
right.
shall provide for such a review
Really, you could just say in any other year.
in any other year.
Period. Yeah.
And
And then the next sentence would come back to, the charter review committee shall consist of, and then 4 members of the council, blah, blah, blah.
I changed that specifically for helping out a president in the future. I also wanted 9 members on the council, not 8. But I also noticed that Northampton has 8 members. And if we designated 2/3, which I wrote at the end, 8 members is okay. I wanted to know what people thought of this. This is a,
Even
A
number
deal breaker for
committees
me.
are always tough.
yeah, I like 9, but I also think it should be 2/3, so it's still 6 votes.
Right.
But you
Yeah.
have 9 voices, I like that.
Yeah,
Well,
that
see, I
works.
like that. It's still 6 votes, but you have another chance for a person to show up for the 6 votes.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
that-
Why do you like 6 votes?
Well, it's just a 2/3.
Well, 2/3 is required by the state, I think, or someplace it's required for a charter change.
By the city council, right?
of the city council, and that there's a 2/3.
Right, well, I think we have to do it as a 2/3. Well, I like 2/3 here because consensus is always hard, but at least 2/3 means you've got a pretty large majority, right?
No argument.
Some people like to
I'm curious
argue,
about the rest.
like to do consensus voting, but that makes it harder. Like when we did ranked choice voting, we didn't all agree.
Mhm.
But it took 6 votes, at least that's a strong majority to pass something. I like 9, I also want the president to appoint the members of the council, and then the 5 members of the city through the president, but confirmed by the full council.
Through
Do
the
you like that,
appointments
Joe?
pro- Yeah,
Because you did this recently.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I like 5 being residents. That gives 5 citizens a little more involvement.
Right.
The council still has the say at the end of the day.
Yeah,
so
they
it's not-
confirm it, yeah. I put it to 15 months. I think 1 year is not enough time. If you see that, you hear that change I made? I didn't
I
highlight
thought
it.
you should go 9 months.
Huh?
Deadline.
I like it.
You like the deadline, you don't like 15 months?
No, it's joking. 15.
Are we okay with 15?
Yep.
It behooves somebody in the next term to decide if we need a charter review committee, because if we started like in February, we'd have that 15 months and wouldn't be hopping on to another election, you know? But it gives them more time. Although we're finding, we've made a lot of changes, and we're gonna be done before September. But that's because we all agreed to meet twice a month, which is a lot.
Right.
The last committee, we only met once a month, right?
But we weren't as.
We didn't make many changes either.
We weren't as ambitious. I mean, as far as the work we're doing.
Well, we thought we had limitations. We
Yeah.
thought anything it was significantly changed needed to go to our review commission, and it was the Collins Center that told us, no, you can petition the legislature.
Oh, it's totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, to bring up any names, but the former mayor wasn't keen on changing the charter.
At all. The first
Well,
meeting,
all right, well, you.
the first meeting, he came in and said, it's on recording, so it works for me, so I'm happy.
Okay.
But we have a different climate now.
All right, so ordinance review. I changed that to 10 years, but it still says may provide.
I was,
If you do shall, here's what I'm thinking. I know how hard our council works. If you do shall, you're setting up a committee like this at the same time as you're setting up a committee for charter review. And maybe we shouldn't do it in every year ending in 0 now that I think about that. Because now you have an ordinance review. But if you do may,
what if you just switched it to every year ending at 5?
there you go. I like that.
Then you could do it.
It won't be simultaneous.
But I mean, like,
But I think ordinance have to be reviewed, but I think we have to have discretion on the council because we get really busy. This term, we've been really busy. In prior terms, Joe, we haven't been as busy as we are now, right?
But I think the charter is like this, and I think the ordinances are like that.
That's another reason.
Yeah.
Council has never done a full review before.
Yes.
We never did because the word may is there.
Well, and I think that it's a lot to go through with it. I think leaving May is, because you can look at section by section, but to do the whole thing.
Yeah. And so much would be depending,
Because that
like
includes,
planning
like, the
board would have to be
zoning board.
involved.
Well, why does it have to be full review?
Well, it doesn't. And it could be, like we just said, Department of Public Works and the Parks Department needs to be reviewed. Do we need to write anything?
but we can, this is what I don't understand about this entire clause, is when you say, like, at least once every 10 years you may do something, that's a
Yeah, I
completely
agree.
meaningless statement.
I agree.
Like,
I agree.
we may do this whenever we want, and no one's contesting that fact. So to say that at least every 10 years we have the option of doing it is a completely meaningless statement.
You
If
could
we-
also just say,
Do we need it?
the council may provide for review of ordinances by the city by a special or standing committee of the council
At any time.
at any time.
Or, I just think, I think that the 10 years isn't bad, and it doesn't mean you have to review it, but you have to decide if you should review it. So you may say, just take a vote. It doesn't have to be reviewed, just as done last year, or whatever.
Right.
I just think it
We
should
never
be-
even voted on
I
this.
honestly-
In the 22 years I've been on the council, we never even talked
Yeah,
about
but
it.
yeah, who would have flagged that? So, like, in 2020, obviously, this is gonna be fresh in our mind.
Well, I like her thing of every 5 years.
I didn't do that.
Or years of 5, because we have a charter review.
Yeah.
The same group is going to be on the ordinance review maybe. We don't need that.
Right, yeah, no, I definitely agree. These are two big labor-intensive projects.
And the
It should
ordinance
be
review is
fairly
huge.
And I can see being recovered from this in 4 years.
So you ready to do it again in 4 years from now?
Well, see, my issue is, I think an ordinance review may is fine, but the longer you put off things, the bigger the problem gets.
True.
You know, so.
True.
But Barbara, in a sense, like we review zoning all the time because somebody comes up with something that they need. We looked at, we might need to look at how the Board of Public Works is defined in an ordinance. So we talk about that. Do we need this? We review an ordinance as we need it? Do we
It
need
gives
it?
me pause, the idea that the ordinances aren't looked at in some sort of systematic fashion. I mean, I understand it's an enormous job. It just,
If
Well, let me give you an
it feels a
example.
little bit kind of like,
We redid the sign ordinance. That was huge. Remember? It was huge.
Which is
and it
now
got controversial.
unconstitutional.
Which is now unconstitutional, apparently. But when we did it, Jessica Allen came in and said, this is crazy. Let's do it over. And it was on our books for like 2 years before Salem said, we don't have time for this. It's too big.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have to because it's unconstitutional.
It's
Well, it has to be
unconstitutional,
redone.
but
Well,
you
for
still
example,
confiscate signs in town.
We probably should be going through this because we have section 6-2, depositing animal carcasses on ground or in water,
Tell me where I can.
throwing objects into sewers and inlets, keeping swine. You know, there's things that are like.
We still have a farming community.
Yeah.
Sale of
We just
certain-
had a chicken ordinance.
certain non-intoxicating beverages, license and fees, swimming in the nude.
We have a ordinance against swimming in the nude?
Yeah.
Strike that.
There's things here that
A public urination ordinance.
we do.
Yeah.
loitering by certain minors during certain hours. You know,
means
so
kids
there's
have-
Not you guys, only certain minors. Shane, you and Lucas are okay.
taking the privacy of others by peeping. I actually remember when that
Wow.
I mean,
I'm sure there are ordinances like no white hats on after Memorial Day or something.
yeah, there's
Like that.
entire
That's why it
books
should
that
be
are
looked
just
at.
full of like
Right.
silly
Cookie
bylaws
laws,
that
yeah.
people. Look, I mean, okay, if it were up to me, I think that despite this being an enormous task, it is a thing
It sounds like a
that
responsible
should
one.
be done because people pass crazy things and then forget about them. And also because like there is, I mean, just things seem like good public policy at the time and then like times
60
change.
years ago.
Right, and then times change and there's, I mean, you know,
There
there's.
should be an ordinance about the length of women's skirts in there somewhere, you know, like.
Right, and so there's things that
Barbara would have caught that one.
there is like I mean I think it's something now maybe this is something that in many cases is really quick, like people just look it over and they flag like 5 things and say, well, this is what we could get to, we don't need these anymore, and you keep going. I would argue that
I
it's
would
something
argue that I don't think it is gonna be quick, no matter what it is.
This
Somebody will
committee's
come up with
example
something.
suggests otherwise.
No,
Well,
but
this
we
is a little
really
different than an
we
ordinance.
really
That doesn't
dug in.
mean I-
But the
Yeah.
thing is that the charter calls for a report to be made, not a vote on changes to ordinance. So you could just say, look at ordinance, whatever the numbering system is, 53.
We could just order our
And that's it.
own city clerk who works for us to go through and tell us which ones we ought to change, Barb. I'm resigning tomorrow.
Well, see, then you get into the almost like,
But that's the thing, when we get to an ordinance that's problematic, we change it when we get to it. The zoning is one thing, but there've been ordinances which come before us and we've changed them or we've added new ones. When something comes up and the police have to do something and we have an ordinance against, like a noise ordinance, we actually have that. We don't? Somebody wanted one, or something.
Okay, but like,
I don't know. Do we need to review them?
The biggest problem I have with both this and the charter review is that there's no teeth.
There's no what?
There's no teeth. So you just ignore it, and then what?
Well, the charter review says shall. That's different.
What if you don't?
Well, we're elected
Somebody-
people. We're only accountable to the voters. So
Right.
a voter could say, "Hey, they violated the charter, and
Right,
that's
so
not
that-
cool."
that's-
And the voters
my-
get to decide if they
My point
care.
in saying that is, don't take it out. I mean, it seems like you're not interested in ordinance review.
I'm not saying, no, I'm not saying that. I just want it every 10 years. But I also think every 10 years in years ending in 5, not 0.
I think that's fine with the option that we can just do one if something really like comes across and makes us feel like, wow, we really need to get a grip on.
but I think you should put the word shallow, because.
Oh, that's hard.
I know, wait, but it's just like what Chris says, there's really no teeth, and I think if you just have a meeting and say, we don't need to review it, or we're happy you're done. I think the intent of this was that you do look at things as, you know, and just to make a decision, while we don't have time right now, we can't do it, then you move on.
Right. I mean, I think it makes sense for every 10 years, at least some of the city councilors should be able to find the time to sit down, read the entire ordinance.
Now, there's also one other thing, we're all assuming that we're gonna review, meaning existing ordinances, that no one's gonna come in and propose 50 ordinances.
Well, we've got a lot on the books right now. That's my point.
I know, but what I'm saying, like right now.
To be decided.
We're making changes with rank points voting the terms, so a review could do the same thing. Someone could come in and say, or the committee, we're gonna, not only are we gonna review silly ordinances, we're gonna implement, or ask to implement.
But they can only suggest them.
Council, yeah.
Council has to
That's
approve.
a process.
Right,
This
I
would
mean, we
essentially-
do.
I know, it's ongoing, but it could.
this would essentially be
Cleaning up.
identifying
May be
problem
necessary,
areas.
it says it right there, determining if any amendments or revisions may be necessary or advisable by a report.
Would they even be getting into language? Maybe not, because
It could be just a general review saying, oh, chapter 6 needs to be reviewed because there's outdated ordinances. You know, you could just do a general report.
But then they do the general report and nobody does anything about that
Then they
particular.
make a report. Life goes on.
Am I right though about the general, our city ordinances are about that thick?
That's them right there. Is that all of
It
them?
also includes like the zoning ordinance as part of the.
Yeah.
Is that all of them right there? Is that all the ordinance of the city right there?
Yeah. And
I've read bigger
well,
and more boring.
Yeah, it's not-
I don't have the zoning here.
Speed limits.
So you don't have the zoning in there?
Signs.
No, that's not the zoning. City ordinances and zoning ordinances are two different
I
things.
thought the state did speed limits.
No. Well, the state, there are statutory limits, and then there are, can be community specific.
Well, I don't know what to do with this, because what I don't like is that if we're gonna do it, there ought to be some, okay, we made a report and then it sits on the table and nobody does anything. That bothers me. If we're gonna do it, might as well do something right.
It's a great
Change the
goal,
ordinance.
but it's never gonna happen.
Well, it never happened in
To do
22
well.
years.
Yeah,
It's never happened.
yeah.
Well,
It
then
happens
pull it
when
out.
it needs to happen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do we need it?
I'm gonna send some new business, then we need to start as an ordinance review tomorrow.
I'll
It's
kill
not a
you.
year ending in 5, Tom.
It
Well-
says at least,
All right.
so,
No, we didn't, well, yeah, the current charter says May, so we'll vote you down because it says May.
yeah, well,
I think it should be a new committee like this. To
Yeah.
put that onto ordinance, I don't think it's fair.
Well, no, that's what I have,
Yeah.
by a special
Okay.
or standing committee. I wrote that in there.
right.
And I would certainly want a special committee because the ordinances are a lot.
So why don't you just get away from at least once every
I
5,
have-
10 years, or even years into 5, and just say, the city council may have a standing committee at its desire.
You say at any time.
Right, anytime, that's what I'm getting at. When the need comes up, you
All
feel
I'm
the
saying
pressure.
is, it's not gonna happen. It didn't happen. The word may says, because it's a big job.
Here's a
Maybe,
question.
who said it?
Sometimes big
Chris
jobs
said
are
it should be
fun.
shall.
Do you even need the
I think it should be
paragraph? Because the
shall.
council can change an ordinance at any point.
Yeah, that's
Right.
why I'm saying, why do we need it? But
I mean, do you even need this whole paragraph?
that's what I'm saying,
Okay, yeah.
because we can change them anytime. And the only time like that ordinance would come up, Barb, that you just pointed to, was if somebody tried to enforce it and it's there. Hey, she was swimming nude. It says in our laws we're not allowed to do that.
I think the only reason to have it is to try to induce
Somebody would want to
counselors
change
to do it on some sort of a basis. But
Right, I mean, I just,
I don't
and I
know.
don't think we see eye to eye on this one, but,
Well, no, I don't know. I really don't
I
know.
just think that it would be valuable, at least once a decade, for the council to read the entire ordinance and see if anything pops up as maybe some, like, just to formally do that process, to do something proactively instead of just reacting
I
to
just
things
thought of
as they
something.
come up.
If we have a citizens committee suggest to the council, these ordinances are archaic. The reason it's a citizens committee, it's not adding a tremendous amount of labor to the council, which is why it's never been done. If it's a citizens committee, say 5 members, they look at it every 5, 10 years, and they say, hey, and they're a separate set of eyes. I'm wondering, well, how does that fly? I mean, I'm just
Well,
thinking to myself, if it's
right
not a
now-
council committee and it's a citizens committee,
But like right now, the EDIC, we have a zoning limit before the planning board. We didn't go through the petition process, and it's just languishing there, and we're not pushing it. So we submitted it to Jeff, and Jeff submitted it to the planning board, and it stopped right there. So you have to have. a
well, why
little
did
bit-
it stop? It
Because
should.
they're busy. They're just busy, there's no controversy, there's no tension. Where if I had, if we had submitted the petition, the amendment to petition, the city council would have had to have acted on it. So,
Well, you could still do that.
I know, but what I'm getting at is just as an example to what you were talking about, the citizens committee needs a little bit of, why have a citizens committee if it's not gonna go anywhere? It needs to have a little bit of, you guys can say, oh, that's nice, and be done with it, that's all I'm getting at.
I just think we
All I'm
should,
thinking, we need some eyes on the charter, on the ordinances, and I know that's never been done. And
just
if
think
we
we
don't
should
put the word shall in there, if we put the word shall in there, then some future council is gonna be mad that they have to do this.
Well, that's what they got elected
deal
for.
with it.
Well, what do you think it should be shall?
I think it
Just
should
like
be
a
shall.
charter, they could open up the committee and then say, they look good to us. I mean,
Right.
I don't think that's a responsible thing, but I'm just saying they could do that.
they could be cognizant of the time that they have and prioritize a couple low-hanging fruit and maybe say, make some recommendations for things that the council should look at over the next few years and then adjourn. But I do think that, I mean, this just seems like when you write local laws, that has some weight to it. And I do think that like part of that weight is checking in every few years and seeing.
I would like to see
this
it be
whole-
not just a special committee involving citizens too.
Sure, like the charter review.
I might rewrite this to add that. What do you guys think of adding citizens? A 7-member committee, 4 citizens, 3 councilors. In the years ending in 5. Those would compete with the charter.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you should put the burden on city council fully, as far as.
Well,
the
what I'm saying is if you do that and you have 7 members, you might get something done because you get a quorum of 4.
Well, right, but 7.
And they're just trying to give recommendations to the council. This is an archaic, they're not rewriting the ordinances, correct?
Because
The
then
review is a report to the council.
which would then probably go to ordinance, and they would decide if it needs to be addressed.
Right, and they could handle that over time. They could
They-
do that one thing at a time.
They could say, hey, we want to give you this ordinance out in this bad, or
Right. Right, yeah, it's just, they would just be sending a report. They wouldn't individually be bringing each thing through and then potentially to the planning board, and who knows how that would work.
the report is in 15 months, they hand a report to the council. And they could prioritize it. This ordinance is really bad, this ordinance.
Right.
And city ordinances, are they separate from zoning ordinances?
Yeah.
You have a book on city ordinances and a book on zoning?
Zoning ordinance is part of the city ordinances.
Yeah,
So,
but
but they
It's
would,
just a big ordinance.
Yes.
But did you
Yeah.
say it's not in there?
No.
Zoning is an
City
ordinance.
ordinances
It's
are,
like-
zoning ordinances are part of city ordinances, but they are separate.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't just keep it to ordinances, because we have a planning board and we have a planning
Well, you have to,
department.
because
There are-
Accepting zoning ordinances.
zoning has to go by mass general law. and-
I understand, so
No,
I'm
no,
saying the
there's an
review,
enabling act, you have to, they have to be separate.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm saying the review doesn't look at zoning at all. It
Okay.
only looks at city ordinances.
Right.
I think
Other
they
than
should-
zoning, because, and I would write that in, because
Well, it says ordinances.
zoning is under constant review by the planning department, by the planning board. So there's a lot of people looking at it.
I mean, if I were on that board, I might suggest that we not touch the zoning just because of that fact. But I do think that if there are particular aspects of the zoning, I mean, zoning
You
is
want to have them have the freedom to.
the
look for it.
freedom to look at it, because I think that like,
There's policy implications of zoning.
right now, zoning is a really big issue.
And again, unlike this committee, it's a
Like
report.
Minneapolis
There's
just
no,
got rid of single-family housing.
Mhm,
zoning.
yeah.
I'm like, that's something you might want to consider.
so let me try to rewrite this.
Okay.
Here's what I think my task will be, to write it so that it is every year ending in 5, so that it deals with a 7-member special committee of the council with 4 members of 4 citizens. And review of any ordinance. I won't get rid of zoning, but I will keep it at 15 months.
Of course, the mayor's gonna love spending money every 5 years for legal reviews and stuff.
10 years.
No.
Silly.
We're not. It's a report.
Right.
There's not a legal review unless we decide that,
To look at it.
unless we decide as a council,
Right.
they're right, let's fix this.
Right, you're right.
And I don't think there's a legal review if we say this ordinance makes no sense, let's repeal it. Is there a legal review necessary for that?
And I think we
Well,
can
on a
appeal
low,
whatever
on a
we
low
want.
lying fruit, but some things might,
Like right now, you can't walk your dog in the cemetery. What if people want to change that? Like, I don't think that's going to need to.
Well, if people want to change that, that has to go through council, it has to be
Yeah, it has to
written.
go through the council, but does it have to go to a?
Right.
I don't think like there's certainly nothing saying that like,
Right.
yeah, we can't.
Unfortunately, I believe it is
You're right.
proper and appropriate that city attorneys look at any ordinance we write, that's a law.
And you're right, it would go to the ordinance and then be vetted if needed by the lawyer through the ordinance and then. it comes
If
from there.
we're gonna change an ordinance, you have to have a city attorney review, you really do. It's a law. You gotta
But if
see
you
it.
remove it, you may not have to.
No, repealing, I don't think you do.
Right. Okay.
So let me write that over, so we don't have to spend too much time on it now. Where are we? Loss of office, excessive absence. I wanted something so that we could do, I wrote the word email. Barbara, what did you say you like? I liked it when you said,
Well, on this one in particular, loss of office, I don't think this should, I don't.
it
I
should
think
stay
just
mail only?
Yeah, because I think there should be record of them.
Certified mail suggests that, hey,
Yeah.
you
Email,
received it.
Anybody could look at it. I think you should just leave that section as it is. We have used it before and it's.
We have used
It's
it.
good to be very specific and to have proof that you have mailed and the person has got it. You don't
As
know
long
where-
as there's a post office, we have that
That
ability.
sounds reasonable.
Yes, I agree, I didn't know. Where's the next one? 8.8, uniform procedure of member bodies.
So
I have the city website, so you wanted to say public,
So I don't like this, I think you should say all meetings shall be posted in accordance with the Mass General Law, the open meeting law, Mass General Law.
okay?
As amended. Because it's very specific how things should be posted, when they should be posted.
But we don't want to put
dates.
anything about,
Why?
but you said something about publication, what's wrong with it?
Okay, no, I'm just talking about the first one right here. I'm just talking about 8A right now.
Yeah, but why can't they be posted?
Well, we're doing this right now, but, I mean, why, I think as long as you reference in this meeting thing that they shall be posted in accordance with the open meeting law, in the chapter and section, everything is in there, and
Including electronic publication?
Yes. Yeah, if you have a
In
website,
open
it
meeting
has to-
law?
so, no,
Yes.
right now, the official posting is on a bulletin board that's available 24/7. Cities and towns may designate their website as the official posting location.
May.
But they don't have to. It's not required that it be posted online. I do both. but
I
it's
want to
not
require it that it be
But you
posted
can't
online,
do
that's
it
my
just
point.
online.
Yes, you can.
Can you?
If
Okay.
if the council or selectmen or whatever picks the website as the official posting location.
My point is to make sure that it's posted. Electronic publication is mandated, not maybe. My point on that is, that's the modern way we talk now.
But if you reference the open meeting law, then down the road, if they change it.
But you just said the word may be posted in open meeting. So the next city clerk may decide, I want to go through that trouble.
I guess that's the way we get the 24/7 posting, is by doing it on the website. There are
Outside of
hours
the-
doing outside, I didn't realize that.
It has to be on a bulletin board on the same building as the clerk's office, available.
I didn't realize there was an outside.
There is, it's right outside the door.
Well, Barbara, I hate to disagree with you, but I want to keep
Well, I-
electronic publication as mandated in the charter, not maybe, but mandated.
I
I
think-
agree with you, open meeting law, and also through electronic publication.
It
That's
seems
the
like
website.
this is a,
No?
no, I mean, I agree. I just think that like, this seems to be like an issue, like we've been returning to this debate every few meetings for the last few months. And I do think that we kind of need to handle it in a comprehensive way.
Well,
Of
Barbara,
like-
yeah, Barbara's brought up the definition. is-
So, yeah, I mean, I almost wonder if the right way to do it would be to, I don't know exactly what this would look like, but set something up that would provide for an ordinance that sort of defines what sort of communication we'd like to see.
I don't like to,
The reason for that is that I think the concern that Barb's brought up sometimes is that like, okay, the way that we communicate is this way now, but it might be different in 20 years, and
She coined the phrase electronic publication, which I like a lot, because that allows the website, it allows for Facebook, if you wanted to do that, but it,
Let me just really quickly just say how there's a bunch of references to electronic communication, but I think there's electronic communication, which I see as like directly to, like, I communicate to you, you know, it's an individual, like email right now, which could change going forward. But then I also see there's electronic publication,
I like that.
which is more of like you're publishing, you're posting it on a website or something.
Yes.
Because like, when you talk about the next one, you say notice of vacancies through electronic communication. To me,
Well, that's because we had that definition. That was before you brought up the idea of electronic publication. To me is a better term.
I like it.
Really is.
Electronic communication, that sounds like, oh, you have to like.
We could go
email
back and
everybody.
change that definition.
You don't have definitions for that, so I think.
We did. We added it to the charter way back.
Okay.
We can change that to electronic publication. But I still feel meetings must be posted according to open meeting laws, MGL, et cetera, and through electronic publication. Mandating that the city use electronic publication to let everybody know about meetings. Mandating it. Because open meeting law, you say, is may use it.
I mean, you guys could, I mean, the city could take a vote to say the website's gonna be our official posting notice.
Well, that's allowed in the open meeting law,
Well,
which we're putting
We discussed at the
in.
beginning wanting to make these sort of things available to people, to reach people where they are. You know, and some people can use the website, and some people can come look at the bulletin board, and 30 years from now, who knows, maybe they'll get it in their brain chip, right? But like,
Jesus, I hope not.
but you know, we want to meet people where they are so that they can get involved. And I think that's why we want to include a bulletin board and, in this case, a website and whatever is possible in the future.
Well, when I say electronic publication, I like Barbara's term because that's kind of flexible. It means you have to publish
I
it
agree with that.
in some way. The website would be the first thing.
Another thing I have to say that I was looking at a bunch of other different charters, and there's a lot of communities, if you look under definition of city bulletin board, it includes the website. The website is, it's like, the bulletin board is kind of a word for it, but it includes.
Well, we're gonna look at that
So I
again,
think
because you
maybe
brought up good
a
points.
definition.
We're gonna go back to that definition. We are.
It might be good, I was looking to see what other places did, whether they had any kind of definition for that, and a lot.
But Barbara, you told me you're going on vacation. You won't be here in June when we review the entire thing we've done.
I'm not gonna be here on the 12th or 14th.
That's good.
And I'm gonna be on vacation the last week.
No, but I agree with her. I think we have to go back and look at electronic communication and maybe redefine that.
And that seems like it could be a whole meeting,
Oh, I don't know. I think,
at least a whole, that's like a whole comprehensive conversation. Maybe it doesn't take.
we've gotta have a comprehensive review of everything we've done.
Mm-hmm.
What I've written here is all meetings must be posted according to open meeting law, MGL, and I will find the actual chapter and verse for that, and through electronic publication, period. And the rest of it stays the same.
Well,
And I don't need, and must conform to open meeting laws of the state. I don't know if we need that. I guess we do.
no, because you just.
Is it redundant?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get rid of that then.
You can't say the opposite. She'll not pronounce it.
You gotta do it anyway, so you might as well not say it.
So the only thing we've changed is that. All right. I highlighted this thing in blue because I wasn't sure if we needed to keep doing that at the public library. Did we do that, Barbara?
I think so. It's
So
not
you've been
public library.
violating the charter all these years, Barbara?
It says
Well, Easthampton
may.
Public Library doesn't.
Oh.
No, it does say
The
shall.
Emily
It says
Wilson
shall.
Library
That's why I wanted to get rid of
is a
it.
separate organization
We're gonna
that's partially
strike that.
funded by the city.
Do you think we should strike that, Barbara?
Well, also, now that we
Yeah.
post all of our minutes on the website, so they'll monitor.
There you go.
Alright, so okay.
Well, wait a minute, then do we want to say that? For the convenience of the public, all
No.
records shall be posted on, through electronic publication.
No. And another thing is, take out the certified copies of the minutes.
Where does it say that?
Rules
So
of
that's about it.
minutes of meetings shall be public records and certified copies. I got them by email. Just take
But
out
don't we want to say, instead of the library, do we want to say anything about you do it because you want to do it? This is for the future.
Well, actually, under the public records law, communities have to identify the point person to
Minutes,
access.
minutes of meetings are required to be.
But it doesn't say they have to be published on the website. Do we want to say that in this language, instead of the library, electronic publication? I'm asking. I
They have to be
think,
at your office now regardless. Right, I think we should just strike the minutes.
just strike everything in blue?
Yeah.
And also this, and certified copies of them. should-
I crossed that out.
Suddenly looking at this, there's something I would like to add that I can just type up the language for next time.
Wait a minute, keeping minutes, I just want to see where we're at. Keeping minutes of its proceedings, these rules of minutes, these shall be public records and shall be kept available in the office of the city clerk. That's all I have, right? We're getting certified copies of them is gone.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're getting rid of for convenience all the way down to official records.
I mean, how is it more convenient when the library's closed?
The same
Or-
hours.
Yeah.
This was written
Well, they're
in
open on Saturday,
1996.
Friday
And in some
Saturday.
communities, the
Yeah.
public libraries are the
Right.
archive for materials.
What did you want to do, Tom?
I don't have this language written, so.
For what?
But I'd like to have something in here about multi-member bodies keeping, like the chair of a multi-member body keeping an attendance record of their members.
Well,
And-
isn't that in the minutes?
Well, they do keep it in the minutes, but when we get like 40 reappointments at the same time, the appointment subcommittee does not have the wherewithal to personally comb through the minutes of each multi-member body to figure out who has been showing up and contributing and who hasn't been.
I say to that the onus of that is 90% of those, almost all of them are through the mayor. That's the mayor's job to decide if a person should be reappointed. If they haven't been attending and the chair hasn't told her that a person hasn't been attending. Our reappointment is based on the person being there and
But
the
isn't it-
mayor saying, I'd like to reappoint this person. Isn't that the mayor's job to?
It is, but isn't it at least partially our job to, when confirming, to verify, like, independently that this, that we want this person's continuing?
Or is that
involvement?
something you can take the word of the chair for?
I mean, well.
You're looking at attendance, there's other reasons not to reappoint somebody.
Sure, I mean, I'm open
If
to.
they have a
other ideas.
controversial person on a committee, yeah, but.
I guess what I'm wondering is, because this was something that came up at the end of last
did.
calendar year, was, you know, right now, just for the benefit of everyone's not on the council, you know, Councilor Peg Coniff, who is the chair of the appointment subcommittee, has made a point of getting really, like, of taking that job really seriously. So if the mayor appoints him, she personally calls every person that the mayor appoints to say, why do you want to do this? What are your skills? And then she reports back on that. The thing is that every year at the end of the year, we get a flood of reappointments from all these different multi-member bodies. And if there's a reappointment in the middle of the summer, she'll actually call the chair of the body and call the person and say, just check in, you know, nothing like crazy or interrogatory, but just like checking in to say, are you, like, how's this going? And is this person like a good contributing member?
Yeah.
And we cannot do that when you have 100 reappointments inside of a single month. And so I thought just now, and I wish I had thought of this earlier because I would have come with language, that while we're looking at uniform procedures applicable to multi-member bodies, perhaps there is some sort of report or reporting requirement that we could put in there that would give the city council a little bit of information
Or actually
to
give
go.
the mayor information.
The mayor as well, they could give, because, right, the mayor is also not probably personally
Familiar.
checking in on
Well,
every
if
single
I was,
multi-member
I
body.
can't say whether Nicole does this, but I think it was discussed that call the chair and say, you have all these reappointments. Has so-and-so been showing up? Yeah, everybody's been coming, it's been great, we should reappoint them. You're talking to the chair. At one point, we had an issue in the historical commission where the chair wasn't showing. Seriously, we had a problem because CPA couldn't act on something because the historical commission had to make a decision on the Majestic storefront, I forget what it was,
Yeah.
or they wanted to get money for their tin ceiling in their store or something. And we needed a historic commission to give us a review, and it couldn't happen because they couldn't meet. So, I don't know, I agree, but I don't know how that,
No, and that's why I said if it's okay with everyone else, I'll try and submit something for next time. I just
Sure.
want to think about it. Frankly, I want to talk to Peg. But
So maybe a workaround on the minutes, there's a section for members present, right? Maybe we should, is there a way to add a section for members absent? At least then, you'd be able to look at the minutes and say, oh, absent, 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 absent.
It's so.
that would require a great deal of research. And Peg has been great.
You're right.
But over all the years, Peg is the first one to do the kind of work she's been doing on appointments.
Yeah.
Really. She's been doing it like gangbusters, and she set a precedent.
Has it changed behavior?
It's changed
Has
the
it
way
changed the
we
end
as a
result?
council trust the appointments committee's
Right.
done some due diligence.
But are
In the
there,
past, we just trusted the mayor.
are there
Seriously.
people not being reappointed because of the work that Peg is doing?
the
All right.
big difference is that the people who Peg's able to do that research are tend to be new appointments, because the reappointments tend to all hit in December, and there's just no way to do that
I think it's
research.
great to do it, I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
at the
well,
end
we're-
of
I'm
the
not
day,
the
does it
one that's
have,
gonna meet
does
too.
it change anything?
We talked about a lot of options because, one of them was we're thinking, we have an email address called boards and committees, and the mayor wasn't comfortable with that because she's afraid you might end up getting a question from a constituent that may get lost in Never Never Land. The last thing they do, they are going to give us a printout of all the board chairs so that we can contact them. And the plan was when we hit those 30 or whatever appointments that come up in December, that we would all split it up and make calls to try to make those same things. I don't think it's really affected too much, because I mean, they're volunteers, and short of them having something really deficient, it's probably not. But I think what I liked about it, I think it's making the idea of being on a board committee more approachable, and she outlines these incredible talents our people have, and sometimes it gets very light about what kind of dog they have. So I think it also sort of lightens up the process.
But that's for
as
new
well.
appointments, what she's been doing.
Right.
We're talking about reappointments
And
mostly.
at some point, how much of the mayor's job are you doing for the mayor? Because
Well,
isn't the
ideally,
council's
she is,
role to
right.
be the check and the balance?
Right,
so
ideally,
that-
she is supposed to be setting who she
Right,
wants.
Right, that's where
If
the
she
heavy
sends the
lifting-
reappointments to us, it's on her. If so-and-so hasn't been to a meeting, I mean, it becomes a big issue.
Well,
It
no.
became an issue with the, let me put that up. The historic commission issue, the mayor did call, that was Karen. Called the chair and said, you can do this work? So
Well,
there
I-
was a consequence.
I think that the appointment and the oversight are two separate roles, though.
But
Right.
reappointment is kind of oversight.
But the.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The
That's what I'm-
oversight and the appointment all starts with the mayor.
Well, right, it starts with the mayor, but the city council has the right to exercise some oversight on that.
Yeah, but well,
To
Peg doesn't
object.
want to be a rubber stamp. She wants to know
Right.
what's going on here.
Right,
I'm
and so
glad
I
I'm
just
stepping down as
thought,
chair. I don't need any more responsibilities.
I mean, I should probably talk to really all three of you before, but I just do wonder if maybe in this section, since, given that the city council can't actually independently like make really, or well, there's a debate about whether the city council can like make people do, like make city departments do stuff. If we did want an opportunity to say, we would like these multi-member bodies to give us more information that would help make the oversight of this easier. This seems like the place to do it.
Or is it an ordinance?
I think-
Well, we could potentially do it by ordinance, but again, there's this sort of ongoing conversation about whether
Well, let me say this.
we can by ordinance.
Yeah,
tell
the
people.
Okay,
operational
so,
aspects of
Tom,
the
let me give you this, this is a kind of a catch-22. We're trying to do it through the committee, through ordinance, and the mayor said, I'm not really sure about that, et cetera.
Right.
We do this here, the mayor might say, I'm not really sure about that. In other words, I like the fact that they're trying to do it by ordinance. If they can get it through ordinance and get something done that way, it has the flexibility for the mayor. If we do it here, we gotta get the mayor on board, because she won't go to approve it, and she's the one doing all the appointments.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
other thing I worry about is they're all volunteers. What are we saying? Our oversight, does it complicate reappointment too much that it's harder to reappoint people when we have a hard time getting people to stay on boards?
I mean,
I don't know.
for me,
I
it's
really
like,
don't know.
you meet once a month. Some of them meet twice, but if you meet once a month, then what you're really doing is you're going over your minutes for 12 meetings and saying who was absent, who was present at each of these meetings. Make that a spreadsheet, send it off. You know, then we have it. That's-
I don't disagree, but I don't think it needs to be in the charter. I think it should be in an ordinance.
Like, if Peg,
I don't know.
I'm the chair of the EDIC, if Peg asked me for attendance, I would just, it would take me a half hour, but I would just do it. I would just go through the minutes, and if she asked for more, then I'd have to call her back, but, you know, if she sent me an email for attendance, it wouldn't take more than a half hour, but I don't know if it needs to be in here either.
So the idea, I think the idea would be that we, you know, because number one, attendance isn't the end all.
Sure.
So I think it would be a combination of having the telephone call and
Yeah.
saying, Joe Blow is up for reconfirmation, do you have any concerns?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what if it's the chair? You call the chair, the chair's the problem.
Well,
That's
then
another issue.
They should elect a new chair.
yeah, then you just,
Well,
I
it's
don't know,
shown
you just
that
gotta.
the chair's a problem, that there's other problems.
Yeah.
Well, but the point I'm trying to
Yeah,
make
yeah.
is you're calling all the chairs, the chair might be one of the problems.
Well, I think that's the exception.
And the other thing I just thought of, and I think you thought of this, is a rule might be better because we have the role of the appointments committee is in our rules. If we put in there that they must contact the chairs of committees for reappointment, that's an ongoing thing that's there for any future appointment chair. We could do it by ordinance, but ordinances are rarely looked at, whereas our rules are looked at all the time.
Well, that's actually what I meant, kinda, yeah, that's.
The rule to me would be better because it's in the rules. And if Joe appoints a new appointments committee, hey, look at what you have to do. And I don't know, whatever Peg's doing now, we ought to codify because it's great. That's all I'm saying. In the rules.
And I think what you've done effectively is you've allowed the mayor to wash his or her hands of the process. Just give the reappointments to the council and they're gonna do the work for them.
Well, I think, but I mean.
Not
I
if we
understand
say,
what I
look, this
feel.
guy never showed up. Why did you reappoint her? In public, that person we're embarrassing the mayor.
Especially if it's like 12 people and, you know, when December comes around.
Right. Particularly, not that I have thought about this here, but since our whole idea is to be a check on inappropriate use of mayoral power, like, if there were a mayor who appointed associates of theirs, friends of theirs to positions, and then those friends did not do their jobs, that would be a really bad look for that mayor.
But do you have to go looking for those, or are you the place that people can come to if they're aware of abuses?
We had that once.
There, I mean,
But to be-
of course
Wasn't
they.
for a
You know, if
multi-member
somebody's
body
concerned, the
appointment.
mayor's doing something, okay, we'll go to the council, talk to Joe, Joe can intervene during the reappointment process.
I mean,
But
without.
do you have to do the whole thing
Well, part of it is.
potentially twice?
Well, I think in a
the
perfect,
term.
in a perfect world, the mayor's not gonna send bad appointments if there's no representative in place. So
I like the fact that, I like the rule. I like the rules being where
I
it's.
think that it's a perfectly fine thing to do
I
through
don't,
rules.
I don't see a problem with two separate branches, each having their own process to
Right.
ensure that you have a decent.
Right, I mean, that's the
appointment.
idea, is you want redundant systems, but.
But let me say this, over the years, and I say this with all humility, there are things in the charter that I should have read, but I don't study the charter as much as I have been recently. And ordinances, we just realized they're not always looked at. But the rules are looked at all the time. If you put it in the rules, Tom, I think it'll be more, and I encourage the appointments committee to look at that.
Yeah, I think that, we'll just add it to,
Any way you want to do
yeah,
it.
get it to the, well, I mean, it's actually, it's already on the agenda, there's a continuing.
But I think it should be not an ordinance, because although that's a law and that makes it more codified, it's not looked at. We want something that
No, I think
future
it really
comes.
should. Maybe should come to next, I think it's still on the agenda, so if you want to come to the next meeting, then we can
Yeah.
continue the
I
conversation.
mean, if you want to put it in the charter, I have no objection, but I don't know.
No, I think the rules is fine, because even like right now in EDIC, one lady has resigned, but I haven't been able to get a letter of resignation out of her. But Lindsay wants a letter of resignation, so I have to get it, I guess.
Yeah.
No, you don't. If they don't attend 3 meetings, you could just send them a letter.
No, she said by email that she's not going to come, but she didn't officially resign.
Because unless she doesn't officially resign, then there's not a vacancy.
I disagree on that. I mean, if a body's not there, a body's not there.
Yeah, but it's in the
But anyway,
charter.
my point though was, since she told me that, I have to follow, I'm following that rule. I'm trying to do that.
Yeah. I think that we can, we can handle that by city
The
council.
body can vote that person
I
out
just
to
felt
the
that
loss
putting it
of
in the
office.
charter would sort of
Yeah.
mandate.
They can create that
certain reporting.
vacancy,
Well, I think I'll
even
get
And
if
if
the
I,
person's
what I'll
not.
do is I'll come
Yeah.
to the next meeting
Appointments.
of appointments.
Well, ask
and-
Peg if she's gonna bring it up.
Yeah,
It's already on the agenda.
Right, so it's only, but I'll run it by her. If she's cool with it, I'll go to the meeting. We can chat about it there. If there's any information that she feels she needs, but it like doesn't know if she has the authority to ask for, I'll come back with some charter language.
But I would debate with them
Mhm.
rules versus ordinance versus charter.
Yeah.
Because I really think a rule is better looked at by the committee. The rule is you must do this.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because
Right.
also, I want to mandate in the rule that a future appointments chair.
Yeah, no, I agree there should be a rule. What I'm saying is that city council rules apply to the city council. Stuff in the charter can apply to, if there's an aspect of this that's gonna require the cooperation of, like the chairs or clerks of multi-member bodies, our city council rule doesn't tell them what they can do. The charter does. Ordinance, I would argue, does too, but we have a section right here that just explicitly lays that out.
Okay.
But I'll talk to them.
I think it should be in a
and-
rule too, if we're gonna be.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll talk to them and I'll either resolve that there or I'll have something for
All
them.
right, it's 8 o'clock. We're gonna stop now. We'll finish this discussion. I will send 6-4 to the mayor and to Jane for their comment. Dave, you've got these minutes. Sarah, you've got the
There's
next
not much
minutes.
minutes, because we didn't really do anything.
Well, there's a lot of discussion.
No
Sarah.
motions.
Yeah, I think in the
Did you
future,
take attendance?
we need to make motions when we do that, because we
Yeah.
said let's do it at the end,
No,
and
I'll
we're
have
exhausted,
it.
we just wanna leave, so I didn't think we did.
Well, we haven't really concluded anything.
No, but at the
except-
beginning, like, there were a couple sentences that I made a motion at the beginning that we could have just at least said, okay, that's done, we voted on it.
All right.
So now we haven't voted on anything that we talked about.
But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be in the minutes, the
No,
discussion.
No,
I'm just kidding you.
but it'd be nice to say we've done it.
Well, let me say this, we are gonna review everything we've already voted on.
Oh, I'll shoot myself in the head.
It's the buttons.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.
I can record that.